morning, mathematicians. Today we're going to talk about quadrilaterals. Specifically, we're going to be able to classify quadrilaterals into a family tree. And as we do this today, I think some of us will be able to connect maybe to our own families. Because I don't know about you, but in my family, when we all get together, most of us are pretty similar. We have maybe similar senses of humor, maybe other hobbies or talents that are in common. But then there's kind of those crazy aunts and uncles that are a little bit out there and a little bit different than the rest of us. And I think you'll see how the quadrilateral family tree is somewhat similar. Boys and girls, today, as we do these quadrilateral notes, you'll notice that I have a completed key that I am going to be showing and talking from. You are going to complete your graphic organizer, your notes, as we talk through this together. And you'll complete yours as you see it completed on mine. This is also an opportunity for us to practice note taking. So though we are really talking about quadrilaterals, we're also practicing a good skill that you will use at the junior high, which is note taking. Sometimes, like in this table down below, you don't write down every single word that you see. Instead, you write down those key details that are most important. So we'll talk about that in just a second. First of all, take note up here. A quadrilateral is a plane figure with 4 sides and 4 angles. There are many different types of quadrilaterals, some of which are shown in the chart below. We're going to classify them and sort them by their characteristics. So again, boys and girls, you should have completed those 2 blanks. Now, let's go down to the chart below. Again, you are not going to write down all the words that you see in these properties. Instead, I'm going to highlight what are those most important things that you should include in your chart. First of all, boys and girls, this is a parallelogram. A parallelogram, again, belongs to the part of the family tree where everyone is quite similar. Okay, so thinking about your family tree, these may be the family members that have the most in common and really get along well. Properties of parallelograms that you need to know is that a parallelogram is a quadrilateral, and this is most important. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel. What I am highlighting, you should write down inside your properties box. You could even do just a little bulleted list with just the things that I'm highlighting. These are the most important characteristics of parallelogram. Opposite sides have the same length, and opposite angles have the same measure. This is very important, boys and girls. As we look at parallelograms, we notice that this side and this side are parallel, but we also notice that this side and this side are also parallel. Opposite angles have the same measure. Opposite sides have the same length. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram. So that tells us that it fits all those highlighted properties that we put up here. But the additional thing is that the 4 sides have the same length. So all the characteristics we just highlighted of parallelogram also fit with rhombus. But there's the addition that all 4 sides have the same measure, have the same length. Now, let's go to rectangle. A rectangle, again, boys and girls, is a parallelogram. So it fits all the definition of parallelogram that we put up here. But it has the addition that it has 4 right angles. Now let's go to square. A square is a rectangle, so it fits all the definitions of rectangle, but it has 4 sides that have the same length. Now, as I'm going through this, again, the great thing about a lesson video is that you can pause as needed to make sure that you complete your notes completely. When ready, let's go to trapezoid and kite. A trapezoid is a quadrilateral, and it has exactly one pair of parallel sides. So notice it does not say that it's a parallelogram. It's not a rectangle. It's a quadrilateral. The reason is because a trapezoid does not have the characteristics of parallelogram. Does it have two sets of parallel sides? No. It only has one pair of parallel sides. This set of sides is not parallel. Therefore, trapezoid is going to be one of those crazy aunts or uncle in the family tree. Yeah, sure, they're related. It still has four sides and four angles, but it doesn't share the rest of the characteristics. Now let's go to that crazy kite. That crazy kite is, again, kind of like the crazy uncle or the crazy aunt. Because it is a quadrilateral, it does have four sides and four angles, but it has two different pairs of connected sides that have the same length. So look, this side and this side have the same length, the connected sides. And then this side and this side have the same length. But again, it has no pairs of parallel sides. So all of these, parallelogram, rhombus, rectangle, and square, all of these share the characteristic of two pairs of parallel sides. That's why they all fit the definition of parallelogram. So in the quadrilateral family, we can almost come to the side and write that there is a set of quadrilaterals that are quite similar. These, within the quadrilateral family, these shapes are also a parallelogram family. They have two sets of parallel sides. Now, sure, some of them have additional characteristics, but they all fall into that category. Then we have kind of the family crazies. Now again, this is just my way of helping you remember this, but these are kind of the family crazies because parallelograms have two sets of parallel sides, but trapezoid doesn't. Trapezoid only has one set of parallel sides, and kite has no sets of parallel sides. So those are kind of, like I said, the family crazies. Okay, let's come on over here. Again, boys and girls, you can pause. You can go back and replay as needed this video so that you can complete these notes. This graphic is so important for us to understand the quadrilateral family. We know that plane figure means that it's two-dimensional, it's closed, and it's built of straight sides. But within plane figures, there we go. That's what a polygon is. A plane figure is a two-dimensional figure, right? And then some two-dimensional figures are polygons. That's why polygon is underneath plane figure. A polygon is a plane figure, but it's built of straight sides, it's closed, and it's two-dimensional. Now, there's different types of polygons. For instance, we've talked about triangles. But in this graphic, we're talking specifically about quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals are four-sided polygons, four sides, four angles. And then underneath those quadrilaterals, this is the part of the family tree that we said gets along very well. They all have two sets of parallel sides. Therefore, they are parallelograms. And then over here to the side, we have crazy Aunt Kite and crazy Uncle Trapezoid that are not parallelograms. Now, here is what is so important about this graphic, boys and girls. With this graphic, if I can look at a figure and say, oh, that is a square. We all know what a square looks like. Because if it fits the definition of square, What we need to remember, and this graphic reminds us of, is that square may be the most specific name that you can give to a shape, but the truth is that a square also fits the definition for everything that's above it with the arrow that goes to it. So no, it's not a kite and it's not a trapezoid. Notice there's no arrow that goes to kite or to trapezoid, but it does fit the definition of all of these things. So though the most specific name I can give to a shape may be a square, the truth is that a square is also a rectangle and a rhombus and a parallelogram and a quadrilateral and a polygon and a plane figure. So that is what we're going to practice now. Not just what is the most specific name that you can give to a shape, but what are all the names that you can give to a shape. So let's come down below. Again, if you need to pause the video, do so. Because now we're going to ask ourselves about the rhombus. Let's take a look here. I'm going to refocus again. There we go. So a rhombus is also what? What you do, boys and girls, is you find that shape in this quadrilateral flowchart, and you remember that a rhombus is also everything with the arrow above it. So a rhombus may be the most specific name that you can give something, but a rhombus is also a parallelogram, a quadrilateral, a polygon, and a plane figure, because it's everything up the flow chart. Now let's do the same thing for kite. Remember, kite is kind of that crazy aunt or uncle over to the side. A kite is also a quadrilateral, a polygon, and a plane figure. Now let's go to quadrilateral. A quadrilateral is also a polygon and a plane figure. There's only 2 boxes above quadrilateral, but oh man, square. The last one says a square is also, remember, it's everything with an arrow above it. So a square is also a rectangle, a rhombus, a parallelogram, a quadrilateral, a polygon, and a plane figure. So it's all of the words except for kite and trapezoid. Because remember, it does not share the properties of kite or trapezoid. That's the crazy aunt or uncle over to the side. Again, pause the video if you need to make sure that you have all of those notes filled out and good reminders as to those quadrilaterals. When you're ready, let's go ahead and turn to the back side. We just did this exercise, but let's go ahead and remind ourselves of how this works. Identify all the names of this figure. So you are going to go through these steps and see, when you look at a shape like this, we may look at it and say, oh, with my prior knowledge, even before I came to this grade level, I knew what this shape was. But now we can be more intentional with where it sits in the quadrilateral family tree. So the first thing is, I know that it's a plane figure. It's a 2-dimensional figure, so it's a plane figure. I know that it's a polygon because it has straight sides. So it's a polygon, it's closed. I can look at the sides and see that there are 4, so it's a quadrilateral. Now I examine opposite sides and I notice that my opposite sides are parallel. Therefore, it's in that parallelogram family. It's the part of the quadrilateral family where characteristics are most similar. Lastly, actually 2 more steps here. Now I'm going to notice that all the sides have the same length. Therefore, if it is a parallelogram with all sides having the same length, I know it's either going to be a rhombus or a square. Rhombus and square are 2 shapes that both have all sides with the same length. But the difference is a square has all right angles, whereas a rhombus does not. So I ask myself now, does it have any right angles? Yes, indeed, it has 4. Therefore, I know that it has to be a square. Since all the sides have the same length and it has 4 right angles, I know it is a square because that's the parallelogram that has those properties. Therefore, the solution really is that the figure can be identified as a plane figure, a polygon, a quadrilateral, a parallelogram, a rhombus, a rectangle, and a square. And I know that because, again, I went down through that flow chart and I decided what it was. Notice this question here said all the names. Therefore, you list all the names from the flow chart that we can call this shape. Notice number 2 is different. It says the best name. Since it says the best name, I'm only going to give it the one most specific name that this shape can be. When I look at this shape, I notice it has 4 sides, so it's a quadrilateral. But I notice that only one pair of sides are parallel. This one and this one are not parallel. Only this and this are parallel. Therefore, I know it sits as that crazy Uncle Trapezoid that is not a parallelogram. This one only has one name because the question asked me for the best name to give the shape. Number 1 has lots of answers because it said all the names to give the shape. You'll want to notice that so that you'll be ready for the practice that we will do. Okay, boys and girls, here is what you're going to do. Now it's your turn. Take a look at this coached example. Notice the blanks of this coached example and give it a try. Notice you're not just going to look at this and say, oh, I know it's a. No, it is asking you instead to take a look at this and to go through and very intentionally see where it sits in the quadrilateral family tree and to give it 2 ways that you can classify this. When in doubt, come back to your flow chart because this flow chart is definitely going to be what we want to look at or visualize in our brain as we think about quadrilaterals. Let's take about 2 minutes for you to complete this, and then we will come back together and see how we did on our coached example.